Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for the third workshop in our series on emergency preparedness. And this one is going to talk about winter storm safety. So my name is Nichelle Wilson, and I am the Neighborhood Training and Development Program Manager with the City of Charlotte in Community Engagement. And once again, welcome and thank you all for being with us tonight, taking time out of your Thursday to learn a little bit more about winter safety. And I know it's something that we really don't think about a lot in our area, but it's definitely something that can be impactful, and it's always best to be prepared. And so we are joined again by Eliza Gervertes. Close enough.
Close enough.
Third time, still didn't get it. But she is with the American Red Cross and serves both North and South Carolina, different counties in North and South Carolina. And so she's been with us these 3 times to just share her knowledge about emergency preparedness and the services that are provided by the Red Cross. And so we're going to share about that tonight. As usual, this is recorded, so the recording will be made available to you on our training on demand site, and I will throw that into the chat, that web link, so that you can access this training in a few weeks, but you will also be able to go back and access the other trainings that when they're made available, and you can get that information as well. We will send you a follow-up handout that covers some of the information that we talk about tonight, just so you can have something tangible in your hand to refer back to and to share with your family and friends. And so as usual, we welcome questions. So you can pop something in the Q&A feature, which so are you having trouble hearing me? Okay. So you can pop something in the Q&A feature, and we will answer those questions, or you can pop something in the chat. At the end of the presentation, you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand, come off mute if you would like to speak. And so we encourage questions. We want you all to really get a lot from this experience. And so please feel free to ask questions. So I will turn it on over and let me share my screen, and we will go ahead and get started.
Fantastic. Just the next one down.
Yeah.
So thank you, Nichelle. Welcome to this Be Red Cross Ready presentation. She's absolutely right. This is the third in a series of 3, so I know all of you are experts by now. But we're introducing winter storms to you today, and there's some specifics that I want you to have in your back pocket just in case some tips and tricks are needed. My name is Eliza Geverts. I am the Disaster Program Manager in 6 North and South Carolina counties, including one of the most populated, which is Mecklenburg County, the home of Charlotte. And thank you to Charlotte Housing and Neighborhood Services for inviting me back to present to you today. I appreciate that very much. I hope that you learned something about disaster preparedness in the next half hour or so, and that you ask any questions you may have, and I'm happy to answer them as best as I can. Go ahead, next slide. So today we're talking about winter storms. They are weather events that can bring snow and sleet and freezing rain. They can affect communities throughout the United States and its territories. Even tropical places such as Atlanta and Dallas have been paralyzed by snow and ice. Even just last year, right? We had Texas experienced a terrible winter storm that they didn't expect. So sometimes winter storms can be blizzards. Blizzards are characterized by strong winds and blowing snow, which can cause whiteout conditions to develop, making driving especially dangerous. I come from Minnesota, where I spent 15 years, including the polar vortex. And I can tell you from experience, if you can avoid driving in a blizzard, please do. The extreme cold air that accompanies all winter storms, combined with strong winds, increases the risk of frostbite and hypothermia. And each year, hundreds of people in the United States are injured and killed by exposure to cold, vehicle accidents on wintry roads, and fires caused by the improper use of heaters. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail as we discuss all of those things. Next slide. Okay, so you can go ahead and advance. Keeping yourself and your members of your household safe during winter weather depends on you understanding winter storms and staying informed about conditions and taking appropriate action. So the National Weather Service will issue notices when weather conditions make winter storms more likely. The exact criteria for issuing notices may vary across the country, especially for those areas that are not used to winter storm conditions. And, you know, the greatest example of that is when we know that there might be some snow on the ground here in Charlotte, and before you know it, all the milk and bread comes off the shelves. For some reason, people start to make milk sandwiches. I haven't figured that out yet, but it is important to prepare, so we'll give them that. There are three commonly used terms used to describe the likelihood and severity of a winter storm, and this is what this slide shows you. There's the advisory, the watch, and the warning. So a winter weather advisory means that winter weather conditions such as freezing rain, snow, or sleet are expected, but the conditions are not hazardous enough to issue a warning. Okay? You should monitor conditions and exercise caution when you're driving if you ever hear that there is a winter weather advisory. Additionally, a winter storm watch means that conditions are favorable for significant snow, sleet, or ice within the next 36 to 48 hours, but its occurrence, timing, and severity are not yet certain. Remember, our weather people who tell us the weather and our folks over at NOAA, they're not magicians and they can't tell the future. They just rely on computer models and the data that they have. And so it's very likely that a weather report will change from time to time. If you've ever noticed, the app on your phone may tell you that it's sunny outside, but you look outside and it happens to be raining. You know what I'm talking about. So you want to check back in often when you think a winter storm may be approaching. Finally, a watch means that you should review your winter storm disaster plan and stay informed about weather conditions. A winter storm warning indicates that life-threatening severe winter conditions have begun or will begin within 24 hours. Significant and hazardous snow, sleet, or ice is imminent. So a warning means that you must take immediate steps to avoid serious injury or illness. You don't want to travel until conditions improve, not for any reason at all. It's more likely that if you go outside in your car and drive somewhere that you'll get stuck or possibly hurt yourself or others. So other types of watches and warnings can be issued for winter weather, including wind chill. The wind chill is an interesting method. It's the temperature that the air feels to the human skin due to the combination of low temperatures and wind gusts. And believe it or not, this is something I really paid attention to when I was in Minnesota. Because if the temperature outside was 40, but it really felt like 28, well, that's enough to make my skin dry and possibly get frostbite or hypothermia, right? So you want to be aware that the lower the wind chill, the faster frostbite can occur. Okay, next slide. So at this point, we hope in this third of 3 presentations that you and your household have already taken steps to prepare for a disaster. You've collected essential disaster supplies. You've created a household disaster plan, and you have become informed about preparedness in general. If you or someone in your household has access or functional needs, hopefully you've also created a personal support network and practiced with them and are able to quickly provide instructions to others on how to assist them. Make sure that you have at least a 7-day supply of prescription medicines and medical supplies along with copies of prescriptions. You want to list all of your medications and dosages. You want to list your allergies, list of dietary restrictions. If you have a service animal, you want to be sure to include food for them and water, of course, identification tags, and supplies. Lastly, you want to include a battery backup power for power-dependent mobility services like oxygen and other assistive technology needs. You never know when the power is going to go out. It may go out for more than 72 hours, which is likely going to be when your battery dies and you need it the most. So having that extra battery really makes a lot of sense. So now we're going to discuss the extra steps that you can take to be ready for winter storms specifically. So first, there's a few things that you should consider when you're adding to your disaster kit, all right? For winter storms specifically, shovels and other equipment to clear snow and ice. Now, I know it might be hard to find a snow shovel in Charlotte, but I would definitely encourage you to look. If not, you can always order one online. Large or small, doesn't matter. Having one at your disposal can really help in a pinch. You also want the tools and supplies for securing your home. You want to make sure you have a bag of ice melt for walkways. This is like a salt mixture that you can pour down so that it automatically melts the ice and snow and clears a path for you to drive away or walk safely on the sidewalk. You also want some snow gear. And if you don't know what that is, we can talk about that in a bit. So also, you want to make sure that your car disaster kit is updated. Remember in our Preparedness Essentials seminar, we talked about what a go kit is, right? That's the one that goes with you, probably in a car. You never know. But you want to make sure that in it is a windshield scraper and snow shovel, perhaps a small bag of sand, snow chains, or traction mats to improve tire traction in deep snow. Again, if you're from Charlotte, you probably not haven't experienced this very often, but these are absolutely required items just in case the snow really does fall and it's deep enough to matter. Of course, you want to have extra warm clothing. I throw an extra blanket or an extra fleece jacket. Also, I have a couple of those hand warmers. They're like little plastic things that you can get even at the dollar store. Hand warmers are a great addition to your Go disaster kit. Of course, bottled water and non-perishable food. Bottled water is one of the most essential things simply because you cannot live without it, right? And so you want to make sure that there's enough for everybody who might be in your car when you're traveling and hit into a winter storm. Non-perishable food items can be thought of as anything with a pop top, right? Whether it's frankenbeans or, pineapples in a little cup or a granola bar. These are the kinds of things that are really great to keep in your Go kit. An extra mobile phone battery or bank is really great to have. A flashlight with extra batteries that aren't necessarily inside the flashlight, right? Because we don't want the batteries to go bad. Also, a battery or crank-powered NOAA weather radio. Now, this may sound a little complicated. They do sell them. They're a little bit expensive, but they can come through in a pinch. And when you know the world is out there, when all the lights have gone out, and it's you can't communicate with anybody because maybe the cell phone tower is down or your cell phone has run out of battery, hearing what the news is out there can really calm yourself down and the rest of your family just by knowing what the situation is in the outside your home or your car. A tow rope can help, battery cables, a toolkit, and a compass and paper road maps. You know, it's interesting. You never think of how important a paper road map is until your GPS might go down. Your smartphone ran out of batteries maybe a few hours ago, and there's no way to retrieve it. So a paper map actually comes in very handy and is free at many cities and counties around town. You also want to consider winterizing your vehicle before a winter storm. We do this in Minnesota. You have your mechanic check your car to make sure it's in good working condition. Very much like we do here in the summers, where you want to know that your air conditioning is good. You also want to know that your heater is good and you've got good winter tires. And then next, you want to tailor your disaster plan for what you and your household will do during the storm. And this includes your pets, right? Learn about your community's winter storm plan and identify any emergency shelters or warming centers in your local area. You can go to your local city or county government page to find that information out. If you don't own a form of transportation, you don't have a car, plan for how you'll get to an emergency shelter or warming center. You may be able to call an Uber, but maybe you might have to rely on a neighbor or a friend or even the emergency manager. So make sure that you write down special numbers that you might need. You want to plan ahead for accessible transportation you may need to get to a warming center. You want to work with your local services, public transportation, or paratransit to identify your local or private accessible transportation options. These are great for folks with physical disabilities that may not be able to get around so great. You want to contact your local emergency management agency for a list of pet-friendly shelters. Your pets need somewhere to go, and chances are your local Red Cross shelter won't be able to accept pets because of health and safety concerns. So you want to make sure that your pets are safe and warm, and so you may need to reach out to the local animal shelter or the Humane Society. They'll have some information for you. Finally, you can try and be sure you stay informed of having access to NOAA radio broadcasts. If you don't have a battery-powered or hand crank radio, please do consider it. And if needed, be sure to get a weather radio with a text display and a flashing alert to stay informed. You may also sign up in advance to receive emergency notifications from your local emergency services and go to the county website, and they'll have information on how to do that. Next slide. If a winter storm is predicted, okay. If a winter storm is predicted, it's vital to check and replenish disaster supplies for your household and your pets, right? You want to bring your pets indoors. Never leave them outside. If it's too cold for you, it's too cold for them, right? Just like in the summertime, you don't want to leave them in your car. If it's too hot for you, it's too hot for them. You also want to make sure that you have ample heating fuel. Whatever that is, if you're on propane, if you rely on city gas, if you burn corn in an oil heater, if you use kerosene, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you have ample heating fuel. You want to secure your important documents. People often ask me about this. How do I secure my important documents? If not for, a safety deposit bank box at the bank or a fireproof box under my bed at home, where else could you do it? Well, you can always take a picture of these documents and send them to yourself. Email is a great way to keep a record of stuff like that. You also want to continuously monitor your local radio or TV news for updates, because like we said, things can change very, very fast. After all that's done, if you have time, you can inform and help neighbors or friends that may need additional assistance. Think about who lives close to you, who might call upon you of your neighbors. Maybe they have some access or functional needs where they might need to get in touch with you. Make sure they have your phone number or how to get to you. Fill your vehicle's gas tank in case you need to evacuate. I'm telling you, I never heard the end of it from my grandfather. Grandpa Milty always said, never let the gas tank get under half a tank. And he's right. If you get caught in the snow, you want to be able to run that engine for as long as it can to give you heat for as long as you can, right? So you want to make sure that you keep your gas tank as full as you possibly can. Finally, you want to confirm the closest emergency shelters and warming centers. Your city or county will have information on that. Okay, next slide. During a winter storm, you should always try and stay warm, dry, hydrated, and nourished, okay? The best way to do that is by staying inside. Make sure that heating sources are properly ventilated and are not blocked by snow drifts. This would include if your car is caught in a heavy snow drift, you want to make sure that you get out of your car and shovel around the exhaust pipe so that you don't cause more trouble for yourself later on. The same thing is true at home. Very often, home fires are started by heaters being too close to laundry, curtains, the couch, any fabrics that might be flammable. So you want to remember 3 feet from the heat. Make sure that your heater is clearly away from other objects to avoid any fire disasters. You want to listen to your local news or NOAA weather radio so that you can stay informed of weather conditions. And if you lose either power or heat for an extended period of time during a winter storm, you may need to evacuate based on the plan that you've made. If you have a generator, be familiar with the operating instructions and take precautions to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning, electrocution, and fire. You can find additional information about generators and proper use on the American Red Cross website. If you do lose power, it's very likely that if there is an open shelter near you that they do have power, but you may want to make sure before you leave your home. So calling is always a good idea, especially the local non-emergency number for your emergency manager. If you must go outside, remember, even for a few moments, you want to dress in layers and wear a hat and gloves. You want to walk carefully on icy sidewalks. I can tell you from experience, I've done that more than once. And on a couple of occasions, I ended up wearing crutches for a couple of weeks because I wasn't looking where I was going. There's a special way to walk when you're on ice. Instead of like how you usually just casually put one foot in front of the other, instead in ice or snow, you actually put your whole sole down and then your whole sole down again on your left foot and then your right and your left. This will help you not to slip. And make sure you know the signs of frostbite and hypothermia and how to treat them. So we're going to go over that for a minute. Next slide. Frostbite occurs when parts of the body become so cold that they begin to freeze. Not very comfortable situation. Frostbite usually affects fingers, toes, the nose, and earlobes. When a body part becomes too cold, it may begin to show signs of frostbite. So you want to be on the lookout for things like a lack of feeling in the affected area. Perhaps the skin appears waxy. Skin that's discoloring or becoming flushed, white, gray, yellow, or even blue is a good sign of frostbite. Skin that is cold to the touch. So we'll talk a little bit later about what you can do to treat frostbite, but here are some simple steps you can take to avoid frostbite. Obviously, you want to be aware of wind chill. You want to drink plenty of warm fluids, but avoid caffeine and alcohol. You want to stay active to maintain body heat. You know, a few jumping jacks never hurt anybody, or maybe if you're chair bound, you want to just move your arms and legs a little bit, move your toes around. You want to limit time outside during cold temperatures. If you have to go out, just make sure you get back into warm temperatures as soon as you can. And of course, dress appropriately, wear layers, hats, and gloves. Next slide. So we're talking about frostbite treatment. If you notice any of signs of frostbite, you want to immediately move that person or yourself to a warmer place and remove any wet clothing. You want to be very gentle and never rub or pop blisters on the frostbitten area. You can warm the affected area by soaking it in water that's 100 degrees to 105 degrees Fahrenheit until the area appears red and feels warm again. Once the affected area is warm, you can loosely bandage the area with sterile dressings. Make sure to place the sterile gauze between frostbitten fingers and toes to keep them separated. And most importantly, you want to seek professional help as soon as possible and don't let the frostbitten area refreeze if you can help it. Of course, this is another item you could put in your go kit, just a small round bandage of gauze. Great idea as another addition to your go kit. Next slide. So let's talk hypothermia. It's a serious condition that occurs when body loses heat very rapidly and can be life or limb threatening. So you want to be on the lookout for somebody who has become confused, is having difficulty speaking. Perhaps they can't stop shivering, or maybe they're overcome with sleepiness, or they've developed some stiff muscles. The steps to avoiding or preventing hypothermia are really the same as those for frostbite, but let's go over them. Be aware of wind chill, drink plenty of warm fluids, but avoid what? Caffeine and alcohol. You want to stay active and maintain body heat, move those appendages, and limit the time that you're outside during cold temperatures, and dress appropriately, wearing lots of layers, hats, and gloves. Next slide. If you notice any signs of hypothermia, you want to immediately call 911 and gently move the person to a warmer place. Again, you want to remove any wet clothing that a person is wearing and slowly begin to warm the person with blankets until emergency medical professionals arrive. You never, ever want to put a hypothermic person in a warm bath or shower, as it may warm them too quickly. However, you may think about another item that could go in your go bag, one of those Mylar blankets. I've seen them at Walmart and similar types of stores. They fold up into just a square piece and can keep you warm in case of a winter storm. Go ahead, next slide. So let's talk about that. If you become stranded in your car during a winter storm, the first and most important is to remain in your vehicle and wait for help. You want to display a trouble sign to indicate that you need help. So to do this, you can hang a brightly colored cloth, preferably red, on the radio antenna and raise the hood after snow stops falling. You know, at the Home Depot or Lowe's, very often when people put something in the back of their truck and it extends out further than it should, the law is to put a red flag on the end of whatever they're carrying. These are free, and you can just go and pick one up and stick it in your glove box or your go kit. That way you have it handy if you need it. You want to run the engine occasionally to keep warm, and turn on the engine for about 10 minutes each hour, or 5 minutes every half an hour, just to make sure that running your engine for short periods reduces the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning, and as well, it conserves fuel. So use the heater while the engine is running. That's perfectly okay. And you want to keep the exhaust pipe clear of snow, like I said earlier, and slightly open a downwind window for ventilation. So don't let it blow onto you, but let it blow away from you. So you also want to do some light exercises to keep up your circulation, like we talked about earlier. Maybe clap your hands or move your arms and legs occasionally. You want to try not to stay in one position for too long. If there is more than one of you, you can huddle together for warmth. People do it, monkeys do it. It's good stuff. You want to use newspapers, maps, and even the removable floor mats for added insulation. Layering items will help trap more body heat. And also, you want to watch for signs of frostbite and hypothermia. So why do you suppose that it's important not to sleep for long periods in a stranded vehicle? Well, if you're not awakened periodically to increase your body temperature and circulation, you could freeze to death. If there's only one person in the vehicle with you, take turns sleeping so you can wake each other up, and also keep watch for help when it comes around. Next slide. Okay, so we've experienced this winter storm. We're ready for it because we've made our kit. Now, once it's passed, what do? Well, we want to make sure that's important to care for yourself, the members of your household, and friends and family who might need help. You want to continue to take care by avoiding driving and other travel until conditions have improved. If you must drive, use extra care and have a winter survival kit in your vehicle. In Minnesota, we always say don't hit the brake too hard and easy on the wheel. If you're driving in ice, those are two really good things to remember. Otherwise, your car can go out of control without you. You want to use caution when clearing snow and taking frequent breaks to warm up. Heart attacks, often due to overexertion from shoveling heavy snow, are a leading cause of death during the winter and are responsible for nearly 100 deaths every winter. So if you've lost power, check your refrigerated food for spoilage. If in doubt, throw it out. You want to pay attention to how you and members of your household are experiencing and handling stress. Help people who require assistance, including infants, older adults, individuals with access and functional needs, those with medical needs, and the people providing personal care assistance. Of course, you want to also be sure to remain informed by listening to your local radio for updated information and instructions. And you want to pay particular attention to any continuing snowfall, icing, rainfall, or flooding. Next slide. So what can you do to protect your home before a winter storm? I actually, as I was beginning this presentation, I texted my husband. He's downstairs with the dog, and I said, "You need to take in the hose, please, because we are expecting frost tonight." Right? So you want to prevent frozen pipes by draining pools and existing exterior sprinkler lines. Winterize outdoor hose bibs by closing inside valves, supplying water to the hose bib, draining the water line, and leaving the outside bib valve open so that any water left inside can expand without causing the pipe to break. If you need assistance with this, call your city or county line. They can help you understand it. If you can, add insulation around any water supply lines in unheated areas like the garage or under the kitchen and bathroom sinks. During very cold weather, you want to keep the garage door closed, but the cabinet doors open to keep the areas warmer. This actually works. Make sure your home is properly insulated to keep cold air out. That's the first thing I noticed when I moved into my St. Paul home. It was 58 degrees inside on a cold winter's night. And I thought, where's the insulation? Turns out this old house didn't have it. So I made sure by the following winter they had it. Use caution and be sure that all heating equipment is properly vented and in good working condition. Remember, 3 feet from the heat. Make sure anything that could catch fire, such as curtains, furniture, dish towels, clothing, is at least 3 feet away from any heat source. Consider buying emergency heating equipment or installing a portable generator. If you do get a generator, become familiar with operating instructions and take precautions to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning, electrocution, and fire. Always keep ample heating fuel, whether it's oil, wood, or coal, on hand, but in a safe place. Ensure that fire extinguishers, smoke alarms, and carbon monoxide detectors are working. Make sure that snow removal equipment is available and in working conditions. Trim or remove dead tree branches that are close enough to fall on buildings and clear any leaves that are covering vents. I can tell you, as a disaster program manager for Red Cross, this last one really makes a lot of sense. A lot of the calls that we get during the winter season are trees that have fallen on homes. So make sure to trim those trees up if you can. Next slide. Lastly, the American Red Cross Emergency app gives people instant access to customizable weather alerts, safety tips, and preparedness information for 14 types of different emergencies. And it's all in one free and easy to use app. The family members and friends across the country can help each other stay safe and connected through the app's customizable emergency alert and content on what we do before, during, and after disasters, regardless of where they live. The app provides expert advice on what to do in case of a tornado or hurricane, earthquake, flood, thunderstorm, wildfire, winter storm, and other disasters. People can use the Make a Plan feature to create an emergency plan for their household so that everyone knows what to do and where to go if disaster strikes. The emergency app is available for free in app stores for smartphones, tablets, and wearables, and can also be found searching the American Red Cross or by going to redcross.org/apps. Next slide. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for joining me. If you ever want to do a presentation just like this one to help others become safe in their communities, become a volunteer. Go to www.redcross.org/volunteer to put in your application. Thank you so much for your attention.
Does anyone have any questions? Great information, lots of to-dos and takeaways. And like I said, I will send you a handout that you can use and share with your family and friends. Does anyone have any questions at this time, either in the chat or you can raise your hand?
That's quite all right. There
have,
is that handout, so I was wondering if you could make sure that everybody gets it. Is that possible?
yes, and I actually do have someone that raised their hand, so I
Oh,
will
good.
allow you to speak. So you can come off mute and ask your question.
How are you going to go about getting the handout to the person? I'm not sure. I tuned in when you gave instructions. Maybe I missed that. But are you going to email, or how do I go about getting the handout?
Yes, it will be via email. So everyone that's registered, I have all of your email addresses. So I will email it to you in the morning. And I'll also include a link to our training on demand page on our city website. So you can also access some of our other trainings that we've done, to include our first emergency preparedness video is available on there. So you can include that as well. There was a handout that went with that as well. So if you all are interested, I can send you all 3 handouts from the workshops that we've done if you haven't attended in the past, and we can make sure that you have that information. So I'll send it out to you in the morning.
Okay,
And if all else fails, you can always go to redcross.org and search for what you're looking for. There's a ton of information that's helpful and seasonal and at the ready.
All right. Did you have any other questions? I think we had one in the chat. Okay. Yes. Can you give the location for the Red Cross app?
If you go to, well, let's see, I have an Android, not an Apple, but if you go to your Play Store, Google Play Store, or is it the Apple Store for Apples? You look in there for Red Cross Emergency or Red Cross Alert, and you should see an icon that has a, you should see several different apps that you can download, all kinds of different ones. But the emergency app has a exclamation point.
Okay, thank you. And yes, I will send out all 3 handouts. We'll be happy to do that. Does anyone have any final questions for the night before we close out? All right.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us, Joyce.
Yes,
and
we
everybody.
appreciate you. Yes, we appreciate all of you all joining us, and we hope that you found this series to be helpful. We always want to make sure that we provide valuable information to you all. If you have suggestions for future trainings, whatever topic, please email me and let me know, and I'll do some research and see if that's something that we can prepare. We love to just partner with people in the community to bring valuable resources. The resources are available, so we want to make sure that all of you have the information that's needed to take advantage of the resources. So with that said, thank you so much for being here, and we wish you all a really good night. Take care.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.